Hello, good evening, sir. Hello. At what time exactly meeting should start?
On a 5 p.m., sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Can we connect again or we shall continue?
No, just we remain on the call, sir.
Okay, sir.
Hi, John.
Hi, Daksh. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Nice
So
to see you.
same here. So we'll be starting in just a couple of minutes.
Sure.
Hi, Daksh. Hi, John.
Hi, nice to see you. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. Good to hear. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Just hope there's not too much background noise.
Yep.
Quite clear.
Okay. Thank you.
Have we already got the audience on the call?
No, we'll be going live in some time. And
Okay.
there's just some people who will be joining on this Zoom call. So they're joining. We'll be starting in just a couple of minutes now.
Daksh, has anyone told you that you look like Rohit Sharma?
No. But thank you.
Very good.
So just some couple of minutes.
Sure.
So, John, which part of the world are you in right now?
Bombay. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's the same.
Very much.
Even I'm in Bombay, yeah.
Yeah. Malabar Hill. Where are you?
Just down the hill, Nepencey Road, next to
very close.
Priyadarshini Park,
All right. Which building?
Silver Arch.
Oh, I know the one. Exactly. I know exactly the one. Yeah.
Which
I'm just
building
up the
are you
hill.
in?
Il Palazzo.
Oh, no ways.
Yeah.
Which tower is that?
Sorry?
One of my best friends lives there in the C Tower, 2C.
Yeah, same. We're 5C. So there, I know.
Oh,
Mr.
wow.
Gupta.
Yep, Abhishek, yeah.
Yeah. I'm talking to him last night, actually. Yeah.
He's one of my best friends since I was in nursery.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Small world. Small world. Silver
Yeah,
Arch
very-
is a lovely building. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful building. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, no, very close. So,
Yeah.
it's, I mean, obviously they're very strict at the moment with the building. We're just, no one's allowed in or out, and which is fair enough, I suppose, given where we're at.
Yeah.
But it's
There
been a
was,
bit restrictive.
Yeah. I mean, there was a case yesterday that we found out in the building next to us, Tanny Heights. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah, so Tanny Heights, I think a couple of floors have been sealed and.
Oh, really? We've got good
and
friends in Tani Heights. Dilip Doshi's in Tani Heights.
Yeah.
Friends, yeah, Dilip and his family are there. So,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah. 16th and 17th floor, they've sealed that for a COVID case.
Okay, they're on 26. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, look, I think, there's going to be cases of that everywhere we go
Yeah.
now. And you
Yeah.
just got to take it as it is and
Absolutely.
do what
I
you
just
can.
heard that the chief minister has decided to shut down shops in Mumbai and Pune again. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's a WhatsApp that's come, so
Okay.
you never can believe all the WhatsApps that come.
Yeah, I know, I ignore them all until I read it in the newspaper or, yeah. So where do you shop normally? Close by?
Where do
or
I?
Do
Sorry?
your grocery shopping?
There's a guy who comes downstairs. There's a vegetable vendor who comes for the full building, and then we just give in the order to one person in the building, and then that person just coordinates with the vendor.
Yeah, that's pretty similar to ours actually, and then we're allowed to go to. I go down to Kemp's Corner to Food Hall for a bit, and that's what I do once a week. I do the proper shop.
The food hall is also delivering if you don't want to necessarily go.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. But I'm one of these people that sort of like to go, because sometimes you go there and it's there. The next time you go back, it's not there, and so you're never quite sure. So I get all gloved up and put my mask on and off I go. But yeah, that's what it seems to work so far. But Rajat stores are pretty good next to you. That's always pretty good for imported stuff.
Which one? Sorry?
Rajat stores.
Yeah, Rajat. But Rajat had a COVID case actually week or 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
They did. I saw that. Yeah, I haven't been back there since. So and I'm pretty comfortable with I know where everything is, and the rest we just get from Manila next door.
Yeah, Manila is very good. Okay, I think Daksh wants to get in and start the conference.
No. So sorry to disrupt your communication, but we'll be starting just in the next 2 more minutes. And already some of the people have joined in, and we'll be going Facebook Live in the next 2 minutes or so. So just to give an understanding of the whole format, so I'll start with a small intro, then we're over to John to put the content, to set the context, and then we're over to Raghav, and then some questions that we have already received, I'll put them through to you. And if you want to add something somewhere, you can absolutely do that. You can, weigh in at any point of time. So it's typically a freewheeling discussion. So.
Very good. Okay, no problem. I'll enjoy that. More of a conversation. Yeah.
I agree.
Sure.
And we're Daksh will be taking in questions from the audience and all as well.
Yeah. If possible,
you'll moderate those, or?
Yeah. I didn't get you, John.
I was just saying, Daksh, will you moderate those questions, or do you want us to read them?
No. I'll moderate those questions. There are actually 2 people from the team on the call who'll sort those questions and send over to us. So
okay, thank you.
It won't be an issue.
Thank you.
Yeah. So good evening, people. Namaste. I am Daksh. I'm the founder of Blub World magazine, and we work on the focus of finding teenagers who are doing inspiring work in their life and sharing their inspiration with other teens. To put it in one statement, it's teens inspiring teens. And till date, we have covered nearly 300 such teenagers from across the world. And from time to time, we try to create industry white papers focused on the K-12 education sector, which is simply schools. So since the lockdown began, we started something called the Blub World Web Talks, which is typically this platform where we are all right now. So since then, today we are here in the 54th episode of the Blub World Web Talk. In the last 53 episodes, nearly 600 school leaders have participated in these talks from 70 plus geographies from across the world and shared their innovative ideas, pedagogy theories, and their analysis on how would education continue during the lockdown and how would it change or evolve post this lockdown. Because as far as the school is concerned and as far as the definition of a school is concerned, that has already been obliterated in this lockdown, because the institution that we are going to reopen post this lockdown will need a new set of rules to run, and which would typically, interfere with the basic fabric of a school. There's a school called the Kalinga Institute in Odisha, which has nearly 50,000 tribal students, and they teach them without taking any fees. Their principal had come on one of the talks, and he shared a very nice observation. And I'm sharing that observation just to, set a context to this whole discussion. He said a school is typically a place which brings the society together and teaches people how to build a society. And right now, the school is supposed to teach a paradox. We're supposed to teach social distancing. So how is that going to happen? How we are going to build a society that is in itself distant from each other? But since it was a challenge and it was taken very positively by these school leaders, in the first 30 talks, we collected nearly 100 ideas from 300 school leaders on how to continue learning during this lockdown. And these ideas are there available on Blub World social media and in the last edition of Blub World. And a lot of principals are experimenting on these right now, that whether some of these are scalable, viable, or how will they change. And what we requested, all the people who have joined till now, and even through this very talk, I want to request it once again to all the people who have joined in and who are listening to us. For anybody who's working in the field of education, this lockdown has actually turned out to be a boon. Don't lose this time. This is the time when you've actually got the whole world in the form of a laboratory where you can do any educational experiment very easily and see its implications in very, very small silos. So this is the time to observe. So every day, try doing a small observation paper where you at least put in, some points that you think are changing in the whole ecosystem. Because this document or this content that you create could become the basis for innovation in the coming times. Because every section of the society contributes to it through its own capabilities. And as educationists, it's now our responsibility to create the next knowledge bank that the world would need. Now, to set the context for this very talk that we are all here for, Today we're going to talk about the post-lockdown sports. So how are sports going to resume in schools, in educational institutions once this lockdown comes to an end? So just to put some more perspective on it, just some days back, the Honorable Minister of State, Kiran Rijiju for Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, gave a statement that the new education policy is going to have sports as a part of education and not
To the audience watching, your screen is not frozen. I think we've lost Daksh. It was his screen, so just keep patient and hold on. I think Daksh is going to be back soon enough to finish off his opening statement. Don't throw rocks at your screen. It's not your screen. I think that's working fine. I think we have Daksh back.
No, Daksh is coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, there he is. Welcome back, Daksh.
So sorry for this disturbance that happened. So again, to put the perspective on things, that we are right now seeing a lot of innovation happening in the field of sports in education, because there are online sports classes going on, a lot of different engagements going on. So today we have with us two very eminent speakers who will put the right mix of spices to make this discussion amazing. So I would now like to welcome Mr. John Gloster. I'll just read a small introduction about John so that you can now relate. As if though he doesn't need an introduction, people know him already. And one simple statement puts everything to perspective, that he's the ex-head physiotherapy for the Indian cricket team. Then in itself puts everything into place. But just to detail it more a bit, John is an Australian sports physiotherapist for 27 years. He has worked with some of the most elite athletes in international sports teams, as well as general sporting population. He is based out of India for the last 15 years and has been involved in over 60 international cricket tours and series as a head physiotherapist. And he currently sits actively on 3 advisory boards for school and health-related projects in Mumbai and across India. So a very warm welcome, John. And what do you think on how would sports resume post this lockdown? Over to you.
Yeah, really. Well, first of all, congratulations, Daksh, to you and the whole Blub World, the whole platform that you've created, because, you may have heard this before, but, Paul Roma from Stanford Uni once said that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. So you guys have certainly taken advantage of this crisis and stitched together an amazing opportunity for everybody to learn and grow and build and, throughout this terrible period that we're going through. So I think we've all got something to learn. Firstly, from my perspective, I think, yes, I've been involved at the elite level sport for, 27 years and 22 years with international cricket, and like I said, 15 years in India with cricket. But more importantly for me is what I feel I've got to offer and what there is on offer at the bottom of our pyramid, so to speak, which is where all the kids sit, which is where the grassroots sit, which is where I think the greatest opportunity sits to affect the greatest change, which is why I'm very passionate about this. And through my role as head of quality and performance at Sports Village, and also through my role as head of sports science and sports medicine with the Go Sports Foundation, we're looking at ways to trap and penetrate that space at the bottom of the pyramid and get more talent out of there, but get more kids engaged down there as well. So I've found that during this period, we've started to think a lot, very differently about how we're approaching this space and this whole concept of getting to the kids and how do we do it. So, post-COVID sports and school, I think is going to be very different. We all know that. We're all feeling our way a little bit here. Fortunately for us, as an international company, we have the advantage of what we say second mover advantage, where we're now in a position to learn from others who are now entering the school space again, the after-school sports space again, the academy space. So we're in a position to learn best practices and also the best strategies and SOPs in place to make sure that our kids stay safe and healthy. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't think the messaging post-COVID should be any different to what it was pre-COVID. And what I mean by that is, for me, it's all about movement, physical education, and activity. And I still think that should be on the top of our agenda. And for all the reasons we know. But probably even more so is more relevant because of the whole immunity conversation around that as well. And we'll sort of talk about that a little bit as we go through. Given the restrictions that are going to be there post-COVID and on sporting activities, then, you know, it doesn't mean that physical activity and movement should go out the window. Like I said, I think it should be even brought to prominence even more. And the most important message is that movement has to continue in whatever way, shape, or form. So you'll hear me talking more in this context around movement and physical activity. You won't hear me speak so much about sports or the word sport as such, because I believe that movement is at the core of all learning. And we all know that, and as physical educators, I'm sure we all understand that and know that. But, you know, neuron development, language development, mental health, cognitive health, and of course our physical health is all driven by movement. So remember that the physical education is not sport. And Stephen Jones, a colleague of mine, says physical education supports sport. Okay, but without developing the fundamental skills and the large movement vocabulary that's required in the brain, then sport will not function. So let's go back, and we have a perfect opportunity now to address this whole movement conversation. Okay, because that's where it all starts. And schools need to be supportive, you know, and they need to be supported also in this quest to focus more on exercise. Okay, and like I said, we'll talk about the sports side slightly separately. But you know, you mentioned just then, Daksh, that you know it's very pleasing to see in today's paper. Obviously, it was there previously, but Mr. Rijiju, our sports minister, saying that sports will now be part of the country's new curriculum, and it won't be treated as extracurricular. So I think that's wonderful, you know, and that's a really big fill-up for all of us going forward, that it's now being recognised as critical to a kid's development and growth. Like I said before, I think people find often the word sport a little bit intimidating, particularly in the Indian context and Indian youth. So we need to ensure that we need to still keep encouraging movement and physical activity, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in a structured sport as such. There's plenty of opportunity for us to work on a child's what we call movement vocabulary, and keeping that diversity with our kids without structured sports. The structured sports, I still feel, can wait. Okay, so that's the really important thing, is there's a time and opportunity for that. We mustn't miss out on the opportunity that we have right now to ensure that kids stay moving and stay engaged. So sport and physical activity is still essential. And it's probably even more essential now than ever, given, like I said before, that link to immunity. The three, you know, probably the three key pillars for me is, you know, number one is safety and demonstrating a duty of care for all our kids and everybody that we're involved with when we re-enter the sports phase. And now we need to look at, you know, the complete health picture has to be addressed. I think that's critical as well. So the importance of overall, sort of this overall health has to be appreciated. We've seen some of the statistics around COVID-19 and obesity and diabetes mortality rates are significantly higher in the obese and the diabetics. So here is an opportunity to start addressing those issues. We know that children that enter adulthood with poor obesity markers and poor blood lipid markers, as well as HbA1c blood glucose markers, carry those into adulthood. Okay, so this is a really good opportunity for us to ensure that our children are still focused on that and carrying into adulthood very, very good blood markers, okay, because we can do that. Exercise is a key part of that. And we all talk about 60 minutes a day of moderate to vigorous physical activity per day. I still think that should be at the top of our agenda, because time is no longer an excuse. We do have time with our kids now. They're not traveling to and from school, they're with us. It just means that we as parents now have to be more dedicated and more flexible around how we approach that. But it still should be at the top of the agenda. The other thing that needs to be on the agenda for mine is nutrition. That has to become a focus. And again, with a captive audience, so to speak, with our kids within the household, now is a perfect opportunity to start looking at that side as well. So again, that will address the immunity, but it'll also address the long-term health outcome of our kids as well, entering adulthood with those better health markers that I mentioned before. This is a great opportunity for us to look at the sleep and mental health of our kids. And that is critical as well. Children are going to be suffering through this period, maybe not as visibly, but certainly as much as we are as adults. We need to be able to focus that, we need to be able to address that, and need to, to keep that at the top of our agenda as well. And then the other thing is stress and lifestyle strategies have to come to the fore. So that also is really, really important for us. So managing stress in the children's lives, and then making lifestyle strategies and changes around that, I think is critical. So, it's how do we deliver those messages? That's the question. I think what we're looking at now is perhaps moving from the playground into the classroom, and being more constructive use. When the kids go back to the classroom, there will be limited opportunities perhaps now in the playground and in the structured school sports space. So how we constructively use our classroom time when we do return is going to be very, very important.
John, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Sorry about that. There's some background alarm has gone off in the house. So, but now we're also looking for this shift from the classroom to the home. And this is where, like I said, we have a concentrated captive audience. And this has to be, a focus for us as parents, and where all our energies must now be placed. And this is where we're now going to, develop new models, hybrid models, online platforms, etc., to get our kids moving. The hybrid delivery model, and I know some of my colleagues have talked about this in previous discussions, has to be considered in this period, and particularly in the transition period back to school. Let's all think about this as almost like, I'm saying to all our guys, think about this as a T20 match. Go into this with a T20 mindset. This is as parents, as administrators, as online delivery people, our physical educators, that we need to be flexible. We've got to be creative. We certainly need to be adaptive and thinking out of the box. And there's enough content out there already across all our digital platforms for our kids to stay engaged. And the beauty about engaging with kids on the digital platform is I'm not really considering it as screen time, because they're not directly in front of the screen and focused on a screen. They're set back from the screen and there's movement involved. So as long as there's movement involved, I'm happy. Okay, we're now in a position through some of our after-school academies to actually be on ground now, particularly in some tier 2 cities like Surat, where our kids are being engaged in the outdoors, in cricket, football, and tennis. So like I said before, we need to learn from other parts of our network about best practices, what's happening, what's working, what's not working. We certainly have the learnings from all our UAE academies in the United Arab Emirates, all our schools there. So we're in a position to implement best practices and the best SOPs above everybody else because of what we're connected to in other geographies. So I think what it all comes back to now is the key stakeholder in this whole equation, therefore, I feel, is the parent. So it's so important for us to now start educating the parent more about why physical activity should still be on the agenda. We need to listen to the marketplace, which is the parent. And why I say that is because I'm sure that their number one concern for that parent, particularly when we return to the school space or the academy space, is safety. So we need to take that into consideration. And we now need to see the parent as the physical educator in our system for the time being. Okay, so, science tells us that exercise helps learning, but how many of the institutions are actually embracing that science? So this is the time for us to help educate the parent, to help the institution to help educate the parent as to why all these movement, exercise, physical education, what I call physical literacy, has to still be on the table. Okay, so we need to, and it's been brilliantly done already, that we need to change that mindset that the physical education is first of all extra, and secondly that it's sport. And most often people think that sport is for the non-academic kids. And if you believe that, that's going to be to the detriment to the school or the institution. So for me, it's not sport, okay? Without a child's increasing their curriculum brain, then sport will never function for them. Okay, I mentioned that at the start when I was talking. So for me, you know, we only have a limited time frame, you know, in a child's life to develop these skills. And you know, these skills are what I call motor competence skills and their physical literacy skills. And we really only got that window between about 4 and 11 years to really instill those skills in our children. Beyond that, it's very, very difficult to acquire them. And despite every, you know, sort of desire to become a skilled physical athlete after those ages, it's very, very difficult. And we're going to lose that opportunity now with the kids being at home if they're not in physical activity. Okay, so you know, the big picture for me, if we look at the big picture, we still need to satisfy the agendas that are now coming down from the top. So if you look at what's coming down from the PMO particularly, and fortunately for us, it's been driven by some really proactive people like Mr. Rijiju. They use this. Okay, fitness and health is even more of a focus, particularly around combating diabetes, obesity, and CVD, cardiovascular disease. Engaging our kids, the inclusiveness agendas. For me, it's around the skilling agenda. So skilling our kids with these skills that I just talked about, physical literacy and motor competence, has to be at the top of our agenda. And ultimately, if you want to look at sports and medal outcomes for our country, then this is where it all starts. And sport and PE is really the only effective medium to ensure that we keep all of that addressed. Okay, so what I want, you know, in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that we let this fall off because of COVID-19. We as parents and physical educators need to be more creative. We need to be thinking that this is critical to the development of all our kids, and it has to stay on the agenda, no matter what. So we're doing all our best that we can. I'm trying to get my inputs and all the learnings that I'm getting from our professional athletes, how we can bring that back to our kids. But at the end of the day, I think it's the household that needs to come together to ensure that our kids are staying as physically active and mobile as possible.
Absolutely. Taking the discussion from the structured sport to the movements and the physical education part of it, to just sum what all you said, movements becoming the focus and movement vocabulary, a very interesting term that you used. It should right now be focused on and built on with students, and the complete health picture of the students within the schools should be actually looked at. The parent should become the physical education teacher, and exercise more, which is typically focused on in-house activities. And if it's online sports classes, that won't be an issue as well, because it's not exactly screen time. So it's not quite harming enough there. So, and listening to the parents, because at the moment, parent is somebody who's already super stressed, who's super anxious about what's going to happen to the child. So it's right now the time to actually listen to his part of the story and his perspective on different things. And yes, if we need the medal outcome, so this is the perfect time to actually train the students and develop their muscle skills. So I think that's an amazing start to the discussion. Now let's add a school perspective to all these discussions, that how do they actually turn out or become executed or execute at the school level, and what all difficulties does a school face while doing all this? Because a school typically is an ecosystem that faces a resistance from a different set of stakeholders. So let's listen to the next perspective from our esteemed guest, Mr. Raghav Podar, who's the chairman of Podar Education, which is an education conglomerate established in the year 1927. So he has recently been at the forefront of relief efforts for the poorest of the poor affected by the COVID lockdown across India, providing thousands of kilograms of food, grain, as well as started kitchens to supply over 1,200 meals per day to the needy. And he has been awarded by the Glory of India Award by the Deputy Prime Minister of Thailand in 2016. A very warm welcome, Raghav sir. Over to you. So let's add the school perspective to the discussion of sports post-lockdown. Over to you.
Thank you, Daksh. Namaste to everyone. Wonderful to have all the school leaders and parents and all of you who are watching on the various platforms. John, I think, hit the nail on the head with his opening remarks, and he really sets the context really well, because childhood is a time that we need to make sure that we can get the children to excel at what they are best in, and not necessarily only academics. I'm not saying academics is not important. I understand India is a very academically rigorous country, and of course we need to focus on that. But in my talk today, I'm going to tell you a few tips on how maybe we can help recharge those brains' batteries. So great topic, first of all, Daksh. It was wonderful to know that you're changing the narrative from people who just talk about the online learning or the fees issues and all that's going on. It's wonderful to see sport taking this kind of importance, because it is the true important factor of what our children need. At this time, more so now than ever. We're actually in a time where we're living through history. There has never been a time in which has had so much of rapid change in such a short period of time. We all used to speak about innovation in education. Well, the time is now. The future of education is now. We are living through that. There will be generations beyond who will look back at this time and look back at us and think that, did we steer education or the evolution of education in the direction in which is most required for 21st century citizens? So the primary question that you asked was about schools reopening and how are they going to reopen and how will sports work in that reopened school building scenario. It's clear that our school buildings in India are not going to open before August 15th at the very earliest, as per what the MHRD minister did say. Even after they do reopen the school buildings, what's going to happen is you're not going to have touch sports or team sports right away. So sports like football, basketball, or hockey, these kind of sports are going to take more time. The sports that will reopen first at the beginning will be things like racket sports, badminton, table tennis, or tennis, or even athletics. These kind of sports which you can have some sort of social distancing, or at least not have that much of touch, those will be the ones that will start to start with. I was speaking to some of the global education thought leaders in a webinar last week, and some of them have already opened their schools, the school buildings, in the last 3 or 4 weeks. And they were from countries like Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, and New Zealand, which has also got rid of all the cases of COVID. Australia, which has very low number of cases. Even in those countries, they're not yet going for the touch sports. So the rugby and the football is not yet started. So I think it's important to have safety as the first priority, no doubt about that. But you need to be practical as well. So if somebody wants to start basketball and then they say, you know, every 2 minutes we're going to sanitize the basketball, it's not going to happen. That's not practical. So one needs to be practical as well as understand that safety is the most important priority. But with that being said, I think one has to realize that even though sports in school campus grounds haven't yet opened or will take a while to open in India, that does not mean and should not mean that physical exercise and activity in children and in parents inside their houses, in their rooms or in the terraces, wherever it might be, that cannot stop. John rightly said that you have more time now, so time should not be an excuse. I'll go a little bit further than that and say, even if you don't have enough time, find out that time, because that not only will make your own levels be more optimum, you will be able to achieve more in the reduced amount of time, and you reach higher, better versions of yourself. So it's extremely important that we use this time even in classrooms, virtual classrooms. So there are schools who are doing these virtual classes, online classes, and everyone is portraying it out to be like this, you know, you're just sitting in front of a screen for 3 hours or 4 hours, or however long these teachers are doing it or schools are doing it. To the school leaders watching here, in case you are not having your PT period because you want to finish syllabus, if you want to finish your curriculum portion, so you have chosen to deprive that PT period, or you have cut out the exercise time, please do not do that. You have to ensure that the child is getting their PT period or their mindfulness, meditation, yoga, breathing. It's not necessary that you have to have a campus ground in order to do physical exercise or physical activity. There's so many apps available for someone who wants to do it at home. Just download an app and they'll give you different levels. So do you have basic equipment at home? Do you have no equipment? Do you have advanced equipment? Click on that. How much space do you have? Click on that. And it will give you an exercise routine for the entire month for which muscles you want to work out through an app. So don't find excuses not to do it. The reason why I say that, especially even for students, even for parents, if you're feeling bogged down, if you're feeling stressed out, if you're feeling anxiety, fear, tension, stress about COVID, oh my God, what's going to happen? How are we going to handle this? There's so much of adversity. Yes, there is adversity, but adversity has the ability of eliciting hidden talents that lay dormant inside us during prosperous times. This is the time, if you can fill your brain with those good chemicals, and not only for parents, this is for students also now I'm talking about. What are those good chemicals? What are those good hormones that we should have? I call them a dose of happiness. Now, what is a dose of happiness? Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. These are your 4 happy hormones, or your 4 feel-good chemicals. So when you feel really good about yourself, or feel you own the world, you want to socialize with everyone, you feel confident, your shoulders are back, you feel really good. That's an endorphin rush, or these good chemicals going into your system. What happened, and how do these good chemicals come? By the grace of God, we are very lucky that these things come to us naturally. So you don't need rocket science to get those chemicals. Go play, do jumping jacks, do push-ups, do your favorite exercise, dance, do aerobics, whatever it is, do physical exercise, do physical activity, and recharge yourself with these good chemicals, because it will free your mind from that cortisol. When you get too stressed, your human body's reaction to that stress is cortisol. Cortisol goes and floods your prefrontal cortex. I'll give it to you an example, not now of crisis, which is extremely important, but something that's very important to parents and education systems. What are the education systems of our country and many Asian countries facing throughout the year? Marks, tests, scores, exams, the most important thing. And what are these exams measuring? Your academic prowess, or the fact that you can memorize and regurgitate better. That's an argument for another time. But even if you want to get the highest marks for your student, what is required to get the child's brain to its optimal capacity? What's the last thing you do at night before sleeping? Charge your phone. Make sure you put your phone on charging, because God forbid if you wake up the next morning and it's not charged, or it's at 2 or 3% battery, your day will start with tension, and you, my friend, might have nomophobia in that condition. Nomophobia, by the way, is no mobile phobia. When you feel very tense and stressed and anxiety when you don't have your mobile around you, or very few percentage of battery. So if you want to recharge your brain's batteries, we care about recharging our phone's batteries. We don't focus on recharging our children's brain batteries. What's the mood of a student before they enter an exam? They're tensed, fearful, stressed, anxiety. And with that cortisol overdose into the prefrontal cortex, the CEO of our bodies, of our brains, which controls all the executive functioning of our bodies, that is going to reduce its ability to perform at its best. Instead, the child going in with confidence, with happiness, with belief, self-reliance that I'm going to do well. Don't worry. I've studied well. What happens before outside an exam hall? Miss, 2 minutes. I'm just revising my last minute portion and coming in. What is that child going to learn in those last 2 minutes that he didn't learn the last 2 weeks? But with that stress and cortisol, he is giving himself a lower chance to do better in that exam. Since exams are so important in our country, and wonderful to hear if our sports minister said that sports will also be considered with the same value as curricular core subjects, what they are called. It's about time. It's an idea whose time has come. It's an idea whose time has come a long time back, but it's very, very good if we can really start giving that value to sports as is required for our students. So you ask toppers, people care about topping the exam and getting this percentage and that percentage. And at Podar, we've had national toppers at CBSE, ICSE, etc. And you ask them what was their routine the day before the exam. And the one common thread that runs throughout them is they'll be like, I went for a dance. I did 30 minutes of aerobics. I did yoga. I jumped. I played my favorite sport the day before the CBSE exams. Why? Because you're refilling the brain with the best chemicals. And these come to us naturally. Why do children keep running around? Parents will say, my child, he keeps running around all the time. Khel kood karte rehta hai. He keeps spinning around, doing those round and round circles. I keep telling him, stop, you'll get a chakkar, you'll fall down. Don't do that. My dear parent who says that, please stop your child. Don't stop your child from doing that, because that is the way the child learns. It's the power of play. We are lucky and blessed by God that by doing these natural things that come naturally to us, especially for kids who run around, jump around, dance, fall a little bit, it's okay. It doesn't matter if you fall and you stub your toe. That's how you're going to learn. The power of play is extremely important, and we cannot let that be deprived for our students. There is no point for a child to be sitting in front of a textbook for hours and hours, but his brain is outside of thinking about the mango tree, or it's outside thinking about the cricket match. There's no point of that. So don't try to force your child to just sit in front of a textbook for hours and hours and just not go and get that physical exercise, because you are harming the child further. A study was done, I'll quickly tell you about, by this professor called Dr. Chuck Hillman in the University of Illinois in USA. And he took one class and he divided them into two groups. So let's call them Group A and Group B. Group A, the students, about 20 students, just sat throughout the day listening to the teacher on their seats and listening to the teacher and seeing what learning, teaching is going on. The other kids, Group B, they went outside for a 20-minute brisk walk. That's all, a 20-minute brisk walk. Then he did MRI scans on the brains of Group A children and Group B children. What was found in Group A children in the MRI scan, that all the parts of the brain are looking in blue and few parts at the back center of the brain are green and yellow, which shows activity. The children in Group B, the same MRI scans were done, and all the parts of the brain, most of the parts of the brain were in reds, yellows, and greens, and very little blue. So it shows a lot more activity in the child's brain. So if you want your child's brain to be at their optimal capacity and do best, even if your target is those core subjects or is the academic prowess, even then you have to ensure that the child gets that 30, 40, 60 minutes of playtime, of exercise time, get those good chemicals back in, because children learn best on their feet and not on their seats.
Thank you so much, Raghav. You concluded with a very nice statement that children learn more on their feet, not on their seat.
No, I agree with them. And Daksh, if I'll jump in here, it reminds me of the great Ted Robinson talk where he talks about learning starts from the shoulders down. And I completely agree, because movement is at the core of everything. Like I said, it drives every single function that is positive in that child's life, from when they're born to the day they die. Everything pivots around movement. So now we're in a position during COVID where movement for many has slowed down or stopped. What we're saying, and both of us are saying, is now is the time to ensure that it doesn't, because of all these other incredible benefits. And it was really interesting. A lot of the points that were brought up in that conversation are exactly the same messages that I'm delivering to the Steve Smiths of the world and the Joss Butlers of the world, the best cricketers in the world. We're delivering a very similar message around chemicals, movement, stimulation, and finding ways to switch off. That's one thing we've begged all of our players is now is an opportunity for you to find something outside of cricket, to find something outside of your sport that allows you to relax and switch off and set a different tone in your brain. Get those other chemicals flowing, get the cortisol level. Okay, and this is a perfect opportunity to find it. It could be cooking. I think it's a brilliant for the best of our athletes to learn. And from that, you will find when we come out the other side of COVID-19, they're going to be far better kids and far better.
And also quickly, I want to add that if you ask students, how are you feeling after this? And they all feel energized. They feel refreshed. They feel like they want more. Studying for hours and hours in front of a textbook, and you ask him, how do you feel? Yeah. He will be fatigued. He will be tired. He's sitting on one spot, not doing anything. And this is even right now, if you're live in the time of COVID because you have an excuse that, listen, I don't have going to feel like lackadaisical. But you take out the 30, 40, 60 minutes off, whether you want gym time or you want to do dancing or aerobics or whatever you like. Just take that time out and see how better you feel, how refreshed you feel. You want to do more, you want to achieve more. You achieve the best version of yourself.
Exactly. And one of the talks that I do is exactly this topic, where I pose the question, who is the most important educator in the entire school system? That's the question I pose. And for me, it's the PE teacher, because they help determine every single other outcome for everybody else within that school environment. The math teacher can only determine the outcome of their the math class, science, etc. But the person, because of all the other things that we've just spoken about, who actually determines the outcomes and the happiness index of that school is actually your PE teacher. Yet they're probably the person in the school, particularly in the system that I've seen over the last 15 years, who's probably towards the lower rungs of the pyramid, so to speak, in terms of the educational hierarchy. Whereas I think it should be the other way. They should be at the top of that pyramid. And for me, you know, the best indicator of a school, and every principal should be doing this, is you stand out the front gate of your school at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And the measure of a good school is how many kids leave that gate with a smile on their face. That's all that matters as an educator. Now, that the person that determines that kid has got a smile on their face more than anybody else is the PE teacher, because through that engagement with the PE teacher, they could be more socially included in the playground. They've got better skills. They've suddenly become better at something. They're physically better active. Their hormones are all positively wired. They've done better in their math tests. They've engaged better. They've concentrated. All the other things that we talk about that make a kid happy in school, I think is determined and driven by the physical educator of that school. So therefore, every principal needs to stand at the front of the 3 p.m. and say, are my kids happy or not? And who's driving that happiness index more than anybody else in the system?
Absolutely. Daksh, I know you want to come in. I'm going to say a very quick small point here. Just give me 2 minutes more. Just adding on to what John said. You know, you go inside a classroom, and I'm not talking about only Podar schools or Indian schools. I'm saying across the world. Go inside a classroom and ask the children, who is your favorite teacher in the school? And they will 99% of the time say the teacher who's standing in front of them, of course. But if the teacher is not standing in front of them, and you ask a bunch of students when there's no other teacher in the class, who is your favorite teacher in the school? A very large majority will say their PE teacher. And why is that? Because those good chemicals, you're feeling good when you're in that period. You're feeling good when you're with that teacher. So even a study was done where they surveyed what percentage of students consciously enter the right mood before entering an exam hall, before starting homework, and before starting a sporting activity. Exam hall, it's 10 to 20% of students consciously enter the right mood. For homework at home, it's 0 to 10%. But for a sporting activity, it's 90 to 100%. That's nature, the way we have been created. God has created us to want to run more and enjoy ourselves. So yeah, go ahead, Daksh. Sorry.
Fascinating.
Oh, great perspective again. So before we move on to the next leg of the whole discussion, I want to pose a question to John. So at the moment, what we can all see is that structured sports are not going to resume very easily. So, and the way we understand the theory of movement, or, you know, enabling a lot of movement and exercise to come in, what we understand is once these movements are gamified, they become sports. So how are we going to gamify movement for a kid to keep him motivated to still keep doing that? Because if you do a structured exercise or a PT class, it gets boring for kids. So how do you actually incentivize or gamify the movement portion of physical activity?
Well, I think it's actually the easiest thing to solve, because all you have to do is to create fun. Kids want fun. And so therefore we come back to this whole concept of play and free play. It doesn't have to be structured. So don't think structure, you know. In fact, I'm thinking destructure, to be perfectly honest, at the moment. And it's just about encouraging movement of any time, of any form at any time. That's, you know, so I think for all the parents out there, administrators out there, try and move away from the term structure. And that's why I was trying to veer away from the term of sport, because sport brings with it the connotation of structure. So I would prefer free play, fun, engaging, any activity. Now, the beauty of our kids is they do that very well on their own if we let them be, actually, particularly if there's a group of them. But sometimes they need a little push, and that may mean, yes, we may need to bring an online platform for them, where they have some sort of engagement with a coach or somebody. But again, it's the easiest and best way to keep these kids functioning properly, even in those mediums, is through fun. Make sure it's fun. And as they get a bit older, so that's determining, age determines a lot of that as well, but as they get older, my sort of discussion with them is that your body is your gymnasium. Okay, so anything that you do is a benefit. So even, we know that even just sitting down, our core muscles turn off. Okay, so we get back pain, etc. We get weaker. But as soon as we stand up, they reactivate. So even something as simple as standing up is an activity or an exercise in itself. So we just got to be a little bit creative, develop some of these modules around that concept of your body being your gymnasium. And there's nothing in the house that you can't use as part of that gymnasium, to be perfectly honest. So, you know, us being more creative, in time, for kids, it's about fun and engagement.
So my next question is to Raghav, sir. Actually, we have received a lot of questions already on the WhatsApps that we sent out and the communications that we sent out. So one of the questions is, a lot of teachers at the moment are super stressed. They've been, you know, super fatigued by the online classes that they're doing. And वो एक content creation का जो continuous loop चालू हो गया. So they're quite, you know, stressed out with that. So don't you think there should be a sports activity just for teachers? Just to weigh in an example, there's one school in Singapore, they're doing a very nice activity. Every morning they've started every morning at around 6:30 or 7, they have a small tea party where all the teachers bring their tea, and then they share 5 tips to keep themselves easy and comfortable through the online teaching classes. So do you think sports now need to even be mandated for the teachers? Over to you.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. It's not necessarily sports. It can be any physical activity. And I think the teachers are an extremely important stakeholder, because if their frame of mind is good, they are going to be able to project that onto the students much better. I must tell you that over the last 1.5, 2 months during the lockdown, we've had Zumba sessions for our staff. So all our staff join in and do the Zumba sessions. Some of them are shy, so they don't put their cameras on, but that's okay. As long as they're at the end of the session, clicking a photo and showing that they're sweating and getting red, turning red, that's all that matters. The point is, yes, the teachers who are getting stressed and fatigued, if you think how are you going to overcome that stress, the best way to overcome that stress is to get an endorphin rush, to get the endorphin rush from doing your favorite physical activity. It doesn't matter if you like yoga, sport, if you like dancing, play your favorite Bollywood song and dance with your husband. Go for it. Make him dance as well. It would be a great idea to reduce the stress levels in the house, to get down those tension levels, and to get back the goodness, the positivity, the good thinking back. Because at the end of the day, the biggest playground is only 6 inches, the one between your 2 ears. That space is infinite. It's not like you have the ability, even in a limited space, on your terrace, in your room. If you want to do something with that to reduce your stress, please take that time out of the day for yourself. It's not for anyone else. It's not so that you can show people that you're losing weight or anything like that. Think of it for your own mental health, for your own well-being. Take that time out. There's nothing better than spending that 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 1 hour if you can, of physical exercise and activity.
Yeah, and then to come onto the back of that, you know, in my world, you know, we all talk about at the elite sport level, staying healthy is the #1 predictor of success. So, you know, if an athlete's not healthy, they're not on the field, they're not performing. So same for all of us right now, same lesson for all of us. Staying healthy is our #1 predictor of success. So wellness is the gateway to performance, and it's the absolute platform for success.
I'll give you a little tip about one of my secrets, that one of the things that I follow. And since I'm such a big believer in the physical exercise and activity, if I'm going for a big conference or there's a big interview, or if we're having a session like this, I will make sure I will spend 45 minutes before an interview like this or any of the interviews on TV or whatever, just getting physically active. So I did a treadmill run for about 30 minutes on high speed, just to get my best chemicals going. So I'm at my best version of myself when I'm doing my next big task. So whether it's a forum interview or something like that, or even if we are having these big board meetings and all, get into the best version of yourself before you do your big tasks.
Absolutely. Sporting to, increase your efficiency just before anything critical is happening. Amazing tip. Thank you so much, Raghavji. So there's one question that we've been receiving from a lot of parents, and it has become redundant by now, that the priority for an Indian parent and what he typically considers an outcome of education is just livelihood in whichever format. So do you think he will actually change the narrative of, taking sports onto the first priority and, actually going on with the policymakers or the school operators on literally thinking on putting sports on the first priority? Any of you can weigh in.
Yeah, sure. I'd like to go first if that's okay. I think that's absolutely important. And I understand that an Indian parent is generally one who focuses on the academic rigor and wants the marks and scores and tests, no doubt. And you ask parents, why should parents send their children to schools? So that the child can maximize his or her inherent potential, excel at what they are best in. Why do parents send their children to schools? So that they can get into the best college. There seems to be a little bit of a dichotomy in that. But even if to get into the best college, you need the best marks or the scores, the best way to achieve those best scores is through mental health, is through the sport, is through the physical exercise, is through the physical activity. So if you want your child to do better in exams, if that is your focus, if that is your real goal, no problem. But if you instill in that child's brain these good chemicals of dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, allowing the child to be free, run around, dance, do aerobics, whatever his favorite sport is, let the child do that. Because if you're not going to achieve, if livelihood is the only goal, even that is going to be in a detriment if you don't allow the child to flourish these good chemicals inside themselves.
Absolutely. Before John comes in, I want to add one more portion to this question, that with esports coming in and now becoming this big, what do you think will be the future career opportunities that will come out of this, so that at least this discussion becomes more lucrative for the traditional parent?
Yeah, on the esports front, it is the next big thing, and we've seen that already. And obviously, COVID-19 has sort of accelerated that to some extent. But I think overall, we still need to find the balance, and kids need to be, even your esport guys, and you talk to the best ones, they still have other things going on in their lives as well. Remember, I said earlier, the message to some of our elite athletes is that we need to find something else that's going to contribute positively to their core sport. In this case, their core sport could be esports, that's fine. But there needs to be other things that's going to contribute positively to them. And exactly what we've just been talking about, movement, physical activity, all these things contribute positively because it stimulates other areas of their brain that will then benefit them in their esports journey. So, but their esports journey is not going to be for their whole lives. They've got to remember that as well. Like I said, they need to start entering their adulthood with positive health markers. Now, that is determined now. That is determined between 0 and 11 years of age, okay? We have the opportunity to change that. If we don't change that, it's very difficult to change that afterwards. So this is about setting foundations. So part of that journey of setting those positive physical markers is around getting outside and finding that balance between your esports journey and your own physical journey as well. So it's about balance, but that's where we need the parent to help us educate on that front as well. So it's our responsibility to arm the parent and the institution and the educator with this knowledge that there are significant benefits to you and your primary sport and your primary activity, be it education, be it academics, be it esports, whatever it be, by following another balanced path as well.
Absolutely. So Raghavji, I want to ask one question to you. Are schools actually ready for implementing this once the lockdown opens, or do we have the right people in the teaching staff that can actually handle sports and movement for the sake of it during the lockdown that we are going to see for at least the next 2 months for kids now?
I think there's, yeah, there are. I mean, there are very good companies. Sports Village, of course, is one of them where John is a board advisor. And they have some very, very good resources and content and planning, where even now during the lockdown, we have our Sports Village PT teachers who essentially are taking classes, and the kids are just loving it. They are enjoying themselves, and that's exactly what the purpose of education also is. And one of the things that we've actually instituted in our schools, this is when obviously physical buildings were open, we had this thing called Happy Time. And Happy Time was this few 5-10 minutes where a child would be allocated as the DJ of the day. And he would be nominated by the teacher or by the principal. And this DJ of the day child would go into the principal's cabin, and he would have the ability to play on the principal's PA system, any song of his choice. Of course, not objectionable songs, and you can't have dirty songs, but any kiddie song of their choice. And when he plays that song or she plays that song, the entire school, no matter what they're doing, from principal to peon, get out into the central atrium courtyard or into the passages and just freak out and dance. So the idea is just let kids be kids, enjoy themselves, and recharge those brains' batteries. That's how kids are going. When they come back into class, they're ready to absorb more of what the teacher has to say. So teaching learning is not just a lecture. It cannot just be a lecture. As I said, children don't learn only on their seats. They learn better on their feet. Let children be children. Let them really bring out the best what's there inside them. And let us as adults and educators especially, or parents, not put a lid on that child's curiosity or the child's intrigue. That is one of the most important things of a child's growth of brain development.
So thank you so much, Raghav. I think the talk is actually coming to an end. Before it actually comes to an end, I want to add a typical, celebrity moment to it. I think I might be acting like a paparazzi, but yes, this is the time to do that. So John, since cricket in India is a religion, I would like to, typically ask you any anecdote that you want to share from your interaction with the Indian cricket team that other people, can remember this talk with.
Boy, oh boy. There's been a lot actually. Look, for me, you got to take the highlights for the lowlights, and I've had an incredible journey with Indian cricket. And if you remember, my journey saw 4 coaches. I think I started with John Wright, then we had Greg Chappell, then we had nobody for a year, then we had Gary, first part of Gary. I went through 4 captains in that period as well, from Saurav to Rahul to Anil to MS. So it was a bit of an up and down period, but we had an incredible success. But we also had a really devastating time in 2007. 2007, we lost, badly in the World Cup in the West Indies. But then we bounced back and we won the World Cup in 2007 in South Africa. And I think there were a lot of stories that came out of that about men becoming boys. Boys becoming men, because we were left with a very young group of boys that went on that tour. And the whole objective of that tour was to have fun. Nobody knew about this game T20. No one had played it before, really. So most of the senior players have gone back to India direct from England. We went straight to South Africa from England. And so all these guys, we got together and just said, guys, let's just have fun. And it's incredible that that's why I keep coming back to this fun thing, is that when you put fun into the equation, fear goes away. So same principle here. One of the best ways to push fear, and there's fear surrounding it everywhere at the moment, one of the best ways to push fear to the periphery is to put fun into the center. And I think that was the winning formula for that 2007. There was no fear, there was just fun. And we know what happened from there on in. It was an amazing journey.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, people. Thank you so much, Raghavji, and thank you so much, John. I would have taken questions from the audience. I actually tried to take some of the questions that we had already received, but the time has already come to an end. It's typically over. And I think you enjoyed the last 20-30 minutes interacting on the Blub World Web Talks 54th episode. And I think we'll be sporting more. And most importantly, I take 2 statements, which everybody who's there on the talk, who's listening to us, to please remember. One statement comes from John, that put fun in the center and fear will go away. And second, that comes from Raghav, that let kids be kids. Don't try to make them adults super soon. So again, thank you so much, people, for being here at the Blub World Web Talks 54th episode. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, Raghav. And thank you so much, all the participants for participating.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.